Hey out there in Internet's land, it's your host Francis7 for another one of those Gmax boot camp accessory videos. Yes, accessorize your brain with knowledge of Gmax. That's right. We're coming at you in 3D, baby. Anyhow, um, in tonight's class accessory, you're going to be learning how to do the following. First off, we're going to make some shapes. We're going to learn how to manipulate these shapes, how to weld vertices together. We're also going to take a quick look at how to sort of like glue the objects together so they become treated as one object. And we'll cover a few more texturing tips that I haven't done before. And let's get started. All right, and here we are in Gmax. We've created a cube. We've made it one unit in size, which is basically equal to 1 meter. So we've got a 1 meter cube. It's about waist height, I guess, on a person. And we're ready to get started with today's activity. First off, if you've got a cube, you can use where's it? Okay, you can use the 4-arrow tool. Hang on a minute. Let me see if I can zoom in any closer on this. It's not letting me zoom in any closer right now, but it's the 4-arrow tool. And basically, if you hold your shift key down, you can make a duplicate object, which is kind of cool. So I'm holding the shift key down, just grabbing one of these axes and dragging it out here. It'll ask if you want to make it a copy or an instance or a reference. A copy makes it a separate object. So that's probably what I'm going to want to do right now. And let me zoom out a little bit over here so that we can see this. And the next thing we're going to know how to do is we're going to let's delete that. If you want to get rid of an object, you select it like with the 4-arrow tool and you just delete it. Let's go back to this one and let's right click on it and convert to editable mesh. You've done this probably many times before, but convert to editable mesh is one of those kind of things you just do a lot of. It doesn't hurt to do it again. Oh, and my program's great. Okay, so I've converted it to an editable mesh, and this time my machine isn't crashing. That's very good. And once again, I converted to editable mesh, and now I'm going to go over to the modifier list, which is right over here, the modifier list, and grab the little pull-down arrow, and then we're going to select from the list UVW map. We've done this before to add textures on. It's nothing new. But just to zoom in, just to make sure we're not getting all confused. That puts the little lines around the cube so that we can see that it's got these little orange lines all over it, which is great. And we're by the way, if you click in a window and you click this little zoom in thing here, it'll zoom that window to fill the whole screen. Most of the time I'm almost always working up in the top window on the left because that's the top view by default. You can also right click on these menus and select views and say if you ever accidentally rotate one, you can go to views and then from views you can select top again and I'll put you back up to the top view. Very handy. Anyway, and then I'm going to grab a texture and we're just going to use one of these ones we used before. We'll grab the number 1. Here's another thing you can do. In the basic Gmax class, we taught people how to do this. There's different types of mapping over here, and it's worth taking some time to play with them. Face is usually pretty good. Oops, something just made a beepy noise there. Face is usually pretty good. Box mapping, well, this is a box, so that usually works pretty good. But if you're using it on unusual shapes, that can have some weird... Oh, so as I was saying, there are a variety of different shapes over here. We might as well try box or face. It really doesn't matter at this point in time. But if you select box, that'll put the same texture on each and every side of your box, which makes it kind of handy. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to learn to do something new right now, and that is how to make a copy. Let me convert it back to editable mesh so I can grab the thing again. I just haven't had a tendency to do that way too many times. Hold the shift key down on your keyboard and drag, and you have a duplicate copy. Now this is kind of handy, and often when I'm messing around with models, I'll just make a copy and throw it way off to the side so it's out of view and out of sight, and then I have an extra one in case I mess something up. I can always, just drag it back out, especially if I made too many steps. It only remembers how to undo so many steps. So anyway, here I've got another cube, and what we're going to learn in this episode today, oh, hey, here's another one we haven't really covered in these videos, the hand tool. The hand tool allows you to grab the scene and basically just drag it around so you can see it. I like to use it a lot in the perspective view. It's probably not all that great in some of the other ones, but you use them. A lot of people just like using the magnifying glass. But that's fine. Anyway, so we've right-clicked on this and we've converted it to an editable mesh. So now we have some choices, and the one over here with the little dots, that's allow it to select the vertices. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab the vertices, and then you can see them from any side. If I'm looking from the top over here, then I can grab just one of these vertices. I could like move this in. You can see that kind of an effect that might have. Or I could grab this one. Sometimes you accidentally get the bottom one. So now I've got a shape which basically is looking, not all that great. But I mean, maybe if you were trying to make some kind of a weird thing for your spaceship or something like that, that might be a pretty useful looking thing. But in my case, I might want to just undo this. So let me undo that a couple times. Control Z is undo, by the way. It's also under the edit menu. That's not a huge surprise. But what I can do is this. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to learn how to weld verts together. Basically, I'm just going to draw a line. I'm using the 4-arrow tool. I probably should tell you that first. That's one of the more common tools I use. And I'm going to go ahead and draw a box, basically, in this window up here. This will grab all the top parts. This is the front view. So it'll grab the dot here. It'll grab the dots behind. It'll grab a bunch of them. So now I've got those selected. And what we're going to go down here is, and depending on the resolution of your screen, you may have to scroll the bar on the right a little bit. But the one that we're going to be using is weld. Weld allows you to like basically take these 4 verts, or vertices as they're called, and glue them together. And next to that, selected, for example, are the ones in red. So we've selected the ones in red. It's not going to affect the bottom of the cube at all. But this is only 0.1 meters, so that's not going to grab anything. If I click weld right now, it's not going to do anything. It says because there's nothing within that range. So what I need to do is change that number to be something else. Well, this cube is like 1 meter across, so if I say 2, that would, in that box, and click the selected button under weld, that'll grab all those dots and glue them right together. And now, oops, wrong view. Remember, you got to click in this window first and then change the view. So here's the thing. Now I've made myself a little pyramid. Now, that's not all that great because now my texture is all messed up. You could use UV W unmap and probably manipulate it a little bit if you wanted to. So we could do that, or you could try some of the other default mappings. For example, I could right click on this object, convert to editable mesh. I could go over and say, let's do another UV mapping. I'll just UV map. Okay, now I've got basically that kind of top-down looking thing where it's basically putting the number on the top, which is not all that useful. But if I say face, let's see what happens. I don't know. Oh, that puts it back the way it was. Okay, that's not very good. You could try using the tiles to see if you could slide it around. We could repeat the pattern a few times, like maybe make it 4 times this way and 4 times this way. And that's pretty cool looking, actually, but not really useful. So let me put back to 1. All right, now we want to get that number to appear on there. So what we'll have to do is go UVW, unmap UVW. And we did this in a previous tutorial, sort of a thing. And then we click Edit, which is a button. And basically, let's see, we have it so basically this side over here, this area, is what's being mapped. And this is all junk. Sorry, let me change the color. This is all junk over here. This is not part of the map, not even being used. Now, maybe you could use that and split the texture in half and do something with this side and do something with that side. I don't know. But let's do this. Let's grab this dot, and we'll see if we can bring it up here a little bit. And let's see. Okay, we got this. Okay, so now, is that working? No. Okay, let's grab this side too. This is grabbing all the different sides of our pyramid. It's not really working all that well, is it? All right, one more. I'm thinking will do it. There we go. Almost got it. One more. Looks like there's one more. How many different sides are there to this pyramid? Okay, so now we have a pyramid where basically the 1 is there. That's great. Let's grab all these dots. If you draw a box and select them, you should be able to move them. Let's move them further this way. Texture happens to be the same color. That might make the top of the 1 look a little better. Yeah, it's really not working out all that well. But still, you could see the potential of how to do something with this. Move them up higher. Now we've got the number 1. It's kind of a horrible texture for this type of an example, but maybe you could use that to something to add some detail to it. So let me go ahead and do that. That looks fine to me, I guess, for this example. And once again, we'll just right click on it. We'll convert to editable mesh. Let's see. Next thing you're going to need to know how to do basically is, if this object sits on the ground, why does it need a bottom? I mean, it really doesn't need any kind of a bottom at all. It's not necessary. You won't be able to see it unless you put it on a transparent object or put it up in space. And it's a small knickknack anyway, so it's only about the size of somebody's waist. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of these extra polygons. If you're not using them, general rule, get rid of them. You have such tight limits in there to begin with. So I'm right-clicking on it, converting to editable mesh, and I'm going to go over here to the right-hand side, and I'm going to pick the face button. Yeah, just like think of the A-team in face. Okay, so anyway, Dirk Benedict would probably be happy to be remembered in one of my videos, I'm quite sure. So I now have selected the bottom of the cube, and definitely before, if you're not used to doing this kind of thing, you want to make sure that actually it is the bottom you've selected. It's pretty hard with a pyramid to get the wrong one, but double check all the other sides and make sure, oh yeah, okay, and okay. And then what we'll do is we'll hit the, let's go back over here, and we'll hit the backspace key. I think it's delete. Let's find out. That's delete. Okay, now remember we talked in a previous one about textures being only one-sided. This pyramid is invisible from the inside. And if it's sitting on the ground, that's perfectly fine. If you wanted to change the texture to be two-sided so you could see the inside, we can do that. We can go over here, go to the texture, which I forgot to name. We'll just name it 1, and I'll put my name in. There we go. So that I know it's my texture. I don't think I can have any spaces in that. If I click the two-sided button right here, then we'll be able to see the texture, and here it is. And now we can see it on the inside. Once again, it has to render that, I'm pretty sure, in there. I'm hoping I'm not telling you that wrong. So probably for intensive purposes, while I'm modeling it, that's fine. But probably before I finished it, I probably might make it one-sided. Unless there was some object, like some trick I'm doing where I want it to show from both sides and not add another polygon to it. Like if I was making a plane with like a tree or something like that, I could do that. Okay, some other things we're going to need to do. Let's see. I want to make the top of this cube. I want to make like this a little house. So we're going to make a little house, and we'll go ahead and we'll go over. And now I need to click on the other object. Now I need to right-click and convert it to editable mesh. And we're not going to use the top of the house, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this and hit delete. And so I've deleted basically just the one polygon on the top. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to viewing this on all 4 sides so I can see what the heck I'm doing. And now we're going to learn another tool, which is how to make something bigger. So basically, I have a choice. I can make the building of the smaller to fit under the roof, or I can make the roof bigger. So easiest thing to do, probably since I have the building selected, is to make it smaller. So I'm going to go up here to this tool, and this tool is the Resize tool. And there's a couple different ways to use it. Number one, I can just click on the object and hold my mouse button down and make it smaller. Or in this case, I guess I've grabbed the face. Okay, wait. Let's right-click, convert to editable mesh, and go back here again. So, all right, I forgot to do that. Now, by default, the whole object will get smaller. All right, so now I'm making it smaller. That's pretty good. Okay, some other things you can do with it. If you have got your object, you can right-click on it, and it will bring in these little boxes. That way, you can actually control the transforming type, the zooming type by X, Y, and Z. If there's some reason you wanted to make it taller or something like that, you could scale. Let's make it a little wider, a little narrower, etc. You can do those sorts of things. Let me just undo that. All right, next thing, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the Move tool. Once again, the 4 arrow tool is the Move tool. Now I can zoom in on it. That's great. All right, and I'll go ahead and I'm going to go over here and click on my pyramid. And first off, I'm going to move it up. And then I'm going to move it over. And then I'm going to check my top view and make sure I've got it centered. It's a little bit off to one side. Since I aligned my box originally to the 0 point on this map, I can align this to the 0.2. Down here, instead of leaving it at point, oh, I see, I'm a little bit off. I got the Y fine, but, well, and I moved it upward, so I want the Z to stay the same. But I can make X be 0, and then that will center it right above the object. By the way, these are both the same color because I copied them. This is a horrible color. So if you want to change the color of an object, mind you, it doesn't change the color in game. But if you want, you select it, and then over here on the right, there's a color picker. Let me show you where it is. over here on the right, there's this little color picker. It's right over there. And you click that, it'll bring up a little color box, which will allow you to pick different colors. Once again, you can add your own colors. I happen to like the light color, so I usually use a light color because it shows up better. That way you can tell which object is which when you're looking at it from the top down. It's kind of handy. Let's see. Let's convert this to an editable mesh again here, just because I like doing that a lot. We'll go over here and pick verts, or the vertex, and we'll go ahead and grab the top vert of this window. Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to grab this and bring it down. I don't really want my house to be that pointy, so let's check that out. That looks pretty cool. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and next thing again, I want to know how to. These are separate objects still. I want this object not to be in world. It has to be like basically one object. It has to be attached to each node. So if you're building a chair, it has to all the legs have to be like glued together. I mean, you wouldn't build a chair without gluing everything together. So here's how you do that. I usually start with the one that's on the bottom first. Also, if you're doing anything with transparencies, you always want to start with a transparent object first. So I right-click on it, convert to editable mesh, and then over here, there's above weld. You remember where weld was way down. This is above it, and it's called, under edit geometry, it's called attach. Attack. Okay, no, that's not good. So you say attach, and then you click on the other object you want to attach to it. It then becomes one object, and down in this window you'll see what's called a bounding box. Those are those little white lines, and the bounding box defines how large your object is. It doesn't matter if it's just a single point at the top of it, it's as tall as the bounding box is. So when you're dealing with how big an object is in there for submitting it, and you have a limit, it has to fit within that final bounding box. Now, with some objects you can sort of cheat and rotate, but not like vehicles. So just to let you know. All right, you can kind of cheat by, 40 meters square. It's like I make a long, skinny object, put it on a diagonal, but then there's problems dropping it in world. So here's our object, and we've got it's now one object. We're going to give this a name, and this is if this was our finished object, this would be LOD0. I don't think you really have to capitalize it, but where you name it is up here. This is LOD0, and then you can continue with your copying and your pasting and your moving, etc. So I mean, if you were going to make a whole row of these things, you hold your shift key down. Here's another one right over here. Now we got two of them, etc. Now okay. So now that we've got our object and we've named it LOD. I think we named LOD0, I hope. Remember, each object has 3 LODs. Those are the levels of detail. And this is a pretty darn simple object, but, come to think of it, I think we forgot to take off the bottom. So we could right-click on it, convert to editable mesh, grab the face, click on the bottom, and hit delete. And now we have saved ourselves 2 polygons. And no verts. The verts are the corners. So getting rid of a polygon doesn't necessarily get rid of any verts. It's still there. Plus, there are verts involved in the mapping of this object too. So that can add up. Now, we can't see the vert count in here, but we can see the polygon count. And that's an important thing to do when you're building for there. You have these tight polygon limits. So let's take a look at that now. I think that's up here. Okay, so we have to go up here to this little picture of a hammer, which is what I want to do to Gmax sometimes. By the way, did I mention it crashes a lot? You got to save quite often. And then what I'm going to go to is a Polygon Counter. And Polygon Counter is pretty far down the list. And it'll give you an idea how you're doing. So for example, our current selected objects, we have 12 polygons in this shape, which probably means we really don't need to make any level of detailed models that are different. 12 polygons, not a problem. But it doesn't say how many verts. And generally speaking, we removed, 4 polygons from this model, but we didn't remove any of the verts. So they're all still there. So you can figure probably there's about double the number of verts than when we started. So there's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There's 16, so there's probably a bunch more verts. And it doesn't keep track of those for you. So sometimes you'll make a model and you'll have the polygon count just fine and the vert count won't be good. You can just leave this running down at the bottom of the screen. Sometimes I leave it over to the side. It gets a little tricky because when you add in the other LODs, you can't, well then, you have the whole collection. But each LOD has to have a specific number of polygons when you submit it. I know that sounds confusing. You'll get the hang of it as you go. And so basically that concludes this second tutorial on how to glue objects together, how to mess around with their verts, and if I was going to make this more of a tiki house, you know what I'd probably do with it now I'm thinking about it? I'd probably grab some of these little verts, and like this one here, we'll make this one a little lower than the other side, and we'll grab this one here, we'll move it a little bit out, and Let's move this a little off center and down a little bit. And then we sort of have a more, what would you call it, an organic feel to the house. Let's grab this one and move it back a ways. There we go. So now the house isn't quite straight. A lot of the tiki buildings in there are not straight, and that's just one of the little techniques. It just gives a little character, as they would say. And judging by the fact that you're still hearing the sound of my voice, you've probably completed this little class accessory. So now you should know how to weld verts together, how to glue objects together and treat them as one object, probably know how to resize things, that's pretty cool, and a variety of other little things which I don't teach in my basic boot camp class. Still, exploring on your own is probably the best bet. So get back into Gmax and stop watching videos on YouTube. There's probably a lot better things you could be doing with your life, like making objects for there.com and Gmax. Till next time, I'm Francis7 saying, I'm Francis7, actually. What kind of stupid comment was that?